Hi everyone, if you made it through the last video talking about the formulas, then you should have a good understanding of what we're about to do. If you haven't, I would encourage you to go back and at least watch the first half of that video so you can understand what the formulas are. So we are going to be calculating areas and circumferences of circles today. So the first example just has a circle picture. As you can see, its center is right here. And this distance here from that edge to that edge is 12 centimeters, okay, as noted on the picture. We have two questions. What is the circumference and what is the area? We'll have to calculate those both in terms of pi and as a decimal. And I'll explain what those mean in a minute. Well, let's talk about the formulas for circumference and area first. The circumference formula, which we just call C, typically we can just write 2 pi r. And that stands for 2 times pi, which is approximately 3.14 times the radius. And the area formula is pi r squared, so the pi times the radius squared. So let's start with the circumference first. This distance that's 12, that's the distance across the circle. That's actually represented, that's the diameter. And the diameter is always going to be 2 times as much as the radius. The radius is just this distance here from the center to the end. So that's always going to be the diameter divided by 2. That'll be 6 centimeters. So once we have the radius, we can plug that into the formula. Circumference is 2 pi times 6. Now what we want to do if we're leaving this in terms of pi is just multiply the 2 and the 6 together. So 2 times 6 is going to be 12. And write the pi at the end. And always write the units. So since we're dealing with in centimeters, then we'll put cm. Now 2 times 6 is 12. So we'll write 12 pi centimeters. And that's how you would write it as in terms of pi. You don't actually have to calculate that number. If it doesn't say in terms of pi, or if it says round to the nearest centimeter or 1/10 of a centimeter, then that's when we're going to use a decimal form. So we got 2 pi times 6, or you can, since you have the 12 there, you can just do 12 times pi. And we'll actually have to calculate that. Now, I don't really recommend doing that using 3.14. I would use the pi button in your calculator. If you have a TI-84 calculator, let me show you here real quick, or even just your regular old phone calculator, the pi button, let me zoom in a little bit, can be gotten by pressing second and the caret. If you're using Desmos, you have a couple ways to get pi. You can pull up the calculator at the bottom, and you'll see it right there. And you see it gives you 3.14159. Also, we can type the letters pi. And that'll translate that to pi as well. So you got a couple options of Desmos. I use Desmos mostly to get these calculations. So if I want to do 2 times pi times 6, I'm going to do 2 pi 6 and call it a day, which is really 12 times pi, same thing, 37.699. So we are going to write, in this problem, 37.699. Doesn't say how to round it. But if I were rounding this, I would round that 6 up to a 7. So I'd say the circumference is about 37.7 centimeters. So those are equivalent numbers. One's as an approximation and one's as an exact with pi not calculated. We do the same thing for area. So if we want to know what is the area of a circle with a radius of 6, since we have 6 as a radius, then we're going to plug it into pi r squared. And all we're doing is squaring the 6 when we're writing it as terms of pi. So pi times 6, which is 36. And we want to write the number prior to writing pi. So the area is going to be 36 pi. Now, since the unit's in centimeters, and we're talking area is always measured in square units. So when we write cm, put a little square after that to represent area. As a decimal, we'll put that in the calculator. So pi times 6 squared, which is 36 pi. And as a decimal, that would be see, pi times 6 squared, 113.097. And that's going to be in centimeters squared. I would probably just round that to 113.1 centimeters squared. That's the idea. So just calculating area, circumference and area using, given the diameter of the radius. Now here's your example to try. A circle has a radius of 8.5 inches. I want to know the exact same things. What is the circumference and what is the area, both in terms of pi and as a decimal? So you're going to want to pause this, and then you can see my work. So pause the video, try it on your own, and then unpause it so you can check your answers. Okay, let's check our work. So the circumference, since the radius is 8.5, would be 2 pi 8.5 inches. And 2 times 8.5 is 17. So that would be 17 pi inches. As a decimal, we are looking at approximately 53.4 inches when you calculate the pi. Let's check out the area. Since the radius is 8.5, pi r squared, pi times 8.5 squared. 8.5 squared is 72.25, so the area in terms of pi is 72.25 pi inches squared. And as a decimal, we're looking at approximately 226.98 inches squared, or almost 227 if you round that up to the whole square inch. Great, I hope that made sense. Let's talk about some different types of ways to use the formula. So in this example, we're asked to get the radius and diameter of the given circles. So I have 4 different circles. 2 circles that have circumferences given and 2 circles that have areas. So let's take a look at these problems. The circumference of 10 pi inches. Now, in this problem, to get the radius and the diameter, we'll have to work backwards. So the formula for circumference is 2 pi r. Now, if our circumference is 10 pi, then what we're going to do is we're going to substitute 10 pi in place of c. So 10 pi equals 2 pi r. So in this problem, we can actually solve for r, which is the radius. To do that, we want to divide both sides by pi. And since the pi is on both sides, they'll just cancel out. And so 10 is going to equal 2 times r. At that point, you can divide both sides by 2 to solve for r by itself. 10 divided by 2 is 5. So your radius is 5 inches. Now the question wants to know the diameter. The diameter is always going to be double the radius. So the diameter is 5 times 2, which is going to be 10 inches. Now let's look at it from a different perspective. In this problem for letter B, it doesn't have a pi in it. It's still giving you the circumference. So since c equals 2 pi r, we're going to just put 200 in for c, not 200 pi. You can notice that it doesn't have a pi to cancel out. So what I would do first is divide the 2. Get that down to 100 equals pi r. Pi is just a number, so you can divide that out like we did up here, but you'll actually have to calculate what that is. 100 divided by pi is not mental math. So we'll go to our calculator and do 100 divided by pi. And we get approximately 31.83. So that's going to be 31.83, and the unit here is meters. So R is 31.83 meters. Diameter is always going to be twice that. So whatever that number times 2. Let's see, 32 times 2 is 64. It'll be like 63 point something. Let's see what we get. 31.83 times 2 is 63.66. You can also shorthand meters with an M if you'd like. All right, so what if you're given the area? Using the area formula, which is pi r squared, you can say, in this case, 81 pi is equal to pi r squared. And like we had with the circumference, since there was a pi in there, we can divide both sides by pi and cancel that out, not have to deal with the decimal. And we get 81 equals r squared. Of course, we all know that we can solve for a square by taking the square root. So square root both sides. Square root and the square cancel out. And r is the square root of 81, which is 9. So your radius is going to be 9 centimeters. The units are centimeters here, which makes the diameter twice that, and that'll be 18 centimeters. And finally, on this last one here, we're given an area of just a value without the pi. So we use the same formula. Plug in 400 for A. And we do have to divide 400 by pi to solve it. So 400 divided by pi will be some calculator work. Let's see what that is. So we'll say 127.32. 127.32. R squared is 127.32. All right, to solve for the radius, like up above, we will square root. And I'll have to use a calculator for that as well. So let's go and put that in Desmos. Now in Desmos, you can do the square root by doing SQRT, or you can go back to the calculator and click on the square root button. And what did we say? 127.32. So that's going to give you about 11.28. So the radius is 11.28 in square feet. So the radius will be in feet, which makes the diameter twice that. 2 times 11.28 should be 22.56. You may want to check me on my math there. And that's how you get radius and diameter given area and circumference. All right, one last problem on here for you. And this is kind of doing the full, get the other measurement given one of either the area or the circumference. So if I give you the area, I want to know what is the circumference. If I give you the circumference, I'm going to want to know what the area is. So let's take a look at this. A circle has an area of 100 pi inches squared. We know the area is pi r squared. And we want to know what is the circumference, which is 2 pi r. but we can't figure out the circumference until we know what r is. So even though it doesn't say anything about the radius, we have to get the radius to plug it into the area formula to figure out, to plug it into the circumference formula. So we're going to start by taking this area, which is 100 pi, and we're going to substitute that in for a. We're going to solve it like we did in example 3. Divide the pi's. 100 equals r squared, and the square root of 100 is 10. So since the radius is 10, and the unit would be inches, we want to know the circumference. I can plug in 10 for 2 pi r. So let's plug that 10 in here. And let's do it in terms of pi since it gives me the area in terms of pi. So the circumference would be 2 times 10, which is 20, times pi. And the unit's in inches, so 20 pi inches. Of course, if you wanted the decimal, you could put that in the calculator. All right, last, a circle has a circumference of 15 centimeters. What is its area? In this problem, there is no pi with the 15. So we want to be careful when we calculate the radius. You know, circumference is 2 pi r, area is pi r squared. And since we're given a circumference of 15, we'll plug that in for c. And we're going to solve this by dividing by 2 and dividing by pi. So 15 divided by 2, 7.5. And then we're going to divide both sides by pi. So 7.5 divided by pi. Let's see what we get. So 2.387. 2.387. So my radius is 2.387. And I'm not going to round that anymore. I think we need as much to work with as we can when we're calculating the area. So now that we want to know the area, and we have the radius, we'll plug in the 2.387 into r. And I'm going to just do this as a decimal because this is already a complicated decimal to begin with. So it doesn't make sense to write this in terms of pi. So let's put that in the calculator. Pi 2.387 raised to the second power. And we're looking at 17.9. 17.9 what? Well, the area, the circumference is in centimeters, so the area will be in centimeters squared. And there you have it, guys. That's how you use circumference and area formula. Tune in to the next video where we'll talk about sectors and arc length. Thanks for watching.